Welcome to the Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast about everything from Jesus to joinery and maybe a little bit of sanding too. So, Tom, I got to go to my son's school orientation today. And so he'll be going into preschool, but it's a private Christian school. And we're pretty excited about it. It's kind of a weird time that my 4-year-old now we're starting to talk school and going to be sending him to school and whatnot. And it was, I know we've talked about it because you guys homeschooled. It's like a big decision for us to do the private thing and to send him to private Christian school. And, financially it's going to be a sacrifice, and it's going to be, but we think it's well worth it because the way the public school system is going, I'm not sure I want my kids anywhere near it. But yeah, so it's an exhausting day. Worked and then went over there and running. My daughter, who's 18 months, is independent. She is full of personality, and she just wants to take off and see how far away she can get from us without us running after her. And so that's all I did this afternoon is chase her around. And she's just laughing when you pick her up because she knows. It's just like, so I'm pretty exhausted from today. But how's your day going? You guys had some crazy storms last night too, didn't you?
Oh, dude. So me and a buddy had a camping trip planned. We wanted to go up on the Grand Mesa, do a little fly fishing, do a little mountain biking, and we'd planned this for weeks. We were all excited about it. He's got a small RV, so we were camping in luxury and went up there, got a beautiful camp spot right by the lake, be able to walk over to do our fishing just seconds from the mountain bike trail. And dude, I joke you not, we got there and we knew that there was a chance of rain. It said like a 15% chance here, and then later in the afternoon, it started sprinkling as we're setting up camp. And then all of a sudden, sky fell out. And I joke you not, man, it rained and it rained and it rained, and it stopped for about 30 minutes, and the sun came out long enough for me to put my fly rod together, go drop the line in the lake, and the storm to start coming again. And I joke, we sat inside. All we did was take a nap, read. We did a little Bible study and kind of just hung out. And the next morning we got up. It was just a mud pit everywhere. And we're like, I don't like mountain biking in this. The wind was just howling. And I'm like, I'm not the best fly fisherman in the world. So casting into the wind. And Larry's like, you want to head home? And he said, would you be okay with we head home early? I'm like, yeah, no problem. So we came home. I was here long enough to get outside and work on the farm, maybe an hour or two. And guess what? Started raining. And dude, for the last 4 days, we have had storm after storm after storm. But but you talk about your kids starting school and your daughter running across the yard. It brings back memories. So my daughter, turned 21 a couple weeks ago. Well, she just started her final semester at college. And today she started her internship at Community Hospital, man. So,
yeah.
But I remember her. That brings back a memory of when she was little. She was about 1.5 years when we had built one of those kind of jungle gyms that you see at Sam's Club and Costco, and it had a little climbing wall. And my daughter used to run across the yard when we weren't looking, and she'd be halfway up that wall. And we'd look over and have to zoom over, and she would just giggle just like that. She wanted to test what the limits of how far she could go was. But you'll blink twice as she'll be 21 and graduating college, man.
Man, the world is not ready for her. I tell you what, man, she is fierce. She's aggressive too. She knows what pushes everybody's buttons, and she'll do it and then watch. And she wants to see what the reaction going to be. And it's, it's funny. I was talking to somebody today and I said, with Eli, our oldest, he's pretty, sensitive, not like sensitive, but like he listens. If I raise my voice, he's going to, stop what he's doing. My daughter, if I raise my voice, she looks at me and she'll look at me with this scowl, like, who do you think you are? And this is like if I raise my voice, like not just like, hey, what are you doing? Like I can get a real mean, low voice. It'll make my son cry. And she just looks at me like, who do you think you are? And my wife will be laughing and just, it's just like, I don't know what we're going to, she's already got me tied around her finger. It's just, man.
Oh, bad.
Oh, it's fun. So, but man, we got an awesome episode today. Before we get into that, just want to say thank you to the Patreon supporters. If you're not supporting us on Patreon and you'd like to, you can do so on patreon.com/faithtalkswood. Also give us a 5-star review on Apple. It goes a long way. And then pray for the podcast. You know, this is a ministry that we feel God has put on our hearts, and we want to continue to showcase the testimony of how he's worked through people's lives on this podcast. And so thank you to all the Patreon supporters and all of you guys that pray for us. And without further ado, Tom, who do we have on the podcast today?
Yeah, man, I have been looking forward to this episode ever since we went to Workbench Con. So, you know, most of our guests are people that, you know, we stumble across, we're following on Instagram or YouTube, and we see that they're a Christian woodworker. But Skylar, I had never seen on social media, believe it or not. Seen his daughter on social media, but I had never seen him. And so at Workbench Con, we were fortunate enough to get to meet Skylar and his daughter Hannah as well. So without further ado, Skylar, is it Faria or Faria? I don't know how. Is that close enough? Okay.
That's perfect, Tom.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, to be frank with you both. It's certainly not something that I've done a couple of other podcasts, but this probably be one of the most powerful ones, I think, because faith is important. You know, it's important in how we conduct our lives, live our lives, and what we do and how we serve others. There's a reason, Tom, you've never seen me as being the face of anything on social media with Surfprep, and that's because I'm 62.
Hey, I'm 53. So, I'm still trying to learn this whole social media stuff.
Well, yeah, I had trouble overlapping calendars today in Outlook. So anyway, it's all good. But thank you guys. And I appreciate the opportunity to share. So you said share a little bit about myself, right?
Yeah.
I know we chatted a bit before we got on here, and I'd shared, you asked me the question, you know, have you ever done any woodworking? And the truth is I kind of did when I was younger at home. My dad would make me put paneling up on a wall in a house. Was that wood, you guys? I don't know. Was it wood or?
Back then, yeah, it was probably wood.
It was probably wood. I just remember using a skill saw, and there was no dust collection. We'd be in the middle of the house, and there's just dust blowing everywhere. I'm breathing it all in. And, you know, I'd tell my dad, hey, I'm getting tired. He's like, cut another one. So, yeah, I built homes, you know, rough framing work, all that kind of stuff, but never the kind of stuff that these talented folks at Workbench Con are doing. That's amazing. It's a whole nother level. But I grew up in a real simple. There were 4 of us: my mom, dad, my sister, myself. My sister's 7 years younger than I am, and raised Catholic. So it was very Sunday was, you know, you had to put your slacks on and look nice. And I just remember going to church. You'd sit, you'd stand, you'd kneel, you'd sit, stand, and I'd chew gum and draw things on paper, you know, as a young kid. And my mom would kind of snap me with her fingers, and she's like, you need to pay attention. I'm like, pay attention to what? So wasn't getting fed there, and that's okay. It was all good. And before I knew it, I was I did First Communion, and I didn't even know what that meant. So, but I did it. So went through First Communion, and let's see, I must have been about a freshman in high school. And there was a gentleman by the name of Sean. He was my age. And just one day we're riding our bikes around and cruising around town. And he looked at me and he goes, Skylar, do you know Jesus? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I hear about him every so often at church. And he's like, no, but have you ever accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And I'm like, I don't know, Sean. And boom, it just happened right there. He just walked me through it. And I'm like, was that it? You know, and he's like, yeah, if you've forgiven, you know, if you've asked for forgiveness and God will forgive you of your sins. I'm like, well, I don't think I've sinned a lot. You know, I'm pretty younger at that age, 8th grade, 9th grade. Anyway, that was the seed that was planted for me spiritually. And I'll never forget that day. It was hot. It was in Brawley, California. It was like 120 degrees. I know the exact sidewalk we were on with our bicycles. And I was riding a Schwinn bike. And I just remember all of it. It's like so vivid. And that was kind of it. And then, you know, I went on through high school and then on through college. And, you know, that seed that was planted then, it was always there. And what my my college baseball coach was a very, you know, faith-based man. And none of us even really knew it, but the way he lived his life and the books that he had us read, it was all there. You know, he didn't push anything on us. It was all living by example. And I'll never forget John Scalinos as long as I live, and for the principles and what he taught and the character that he built in us and all that. It was amazing. But my mom had MS, multiple sclerosis. My dad was an educator, and in the summer he would do off jobs like framing homes, building homes, and all that kind of stuff. And he made sure the way to keep me away, let's see, in the late 60s, early 70s, the way to keep me away from pot and marijuana, and I'd never done anything like that. And he was going to make sure that I didn't, is he said later on in life, he said, Skylar, I had to keep your mind occupied, your body busy. And I had to keep you around other young men who I knew their parents operated like your mom and I do. And I didn't really understand all that then. As a matter of fact, I really didn't like my dad a lot then, because he would, you know, he would have me do things that weren't fun. You know, it wasn't like riding around on my bike, stealing rabbit's feet from the Thrifty's drugstore with my buddies, or stealing cigarettes. That's what all my buddies were doing. And he was like, yeah, I got to keep this kid, you know, in a pen. And so the way he did that was through baseball and school. I had to get good grades to play ball, and then to occupy my body and my mind through hard labor. And I used to work the fields pitching melons at 13 years old. And I'd come home and I'd be like, why am I doing this for $2.25 an hour? And he goes, there's no answer to your question. You're just doing it. So, but I'll never forget the day when we had Hannah shortly after she was born. I always respected my father, because all those things that he asked me and made me do, he did alongside of me. So he was in the fields pitching melons with me. So when he would ask me to dig bushes and trees out in the backyard, he was in the hole with me. I thought he was an old guy then. He's in his late 30s. And he was with me doing it, so I couldn't complain. And that's where he didn't know, his major in at Southwestern University in Oklahoma was psychology and business. He goes, son, your mom and I didn't know how to raise kids. He's like, I just had to get you in church every Sunday and just occupy your body and your mind, keep you busy. And that was the recipe for their success in raising my sister and I. Excuse me. Trying to remember, as a youngster, we didn't have a lot. I remember, you know, and these stories, you know, you hear like your grandmother, I walked 10 miles in the snow uphill and I got you know what I mean? And whatever. But we didn't have a lot. We had good food. We had good food to eat. My mom cooked home cooked meals. We had a house over our head, you know, it was a 1,300 square foot house. And I remember in junior high and high school, I remember I'd look across town and see all these kids. Some of them were driving a Mercedes, like an old diesel Mercedes. They were brand new then in 1977. And I would always think like, man, why do we have a Ford Pinto? You know, like, why did my dad buy a Ford Pinto? Why doesn't he get like what the farmers have across town, right? The farmers that owned all the farmland, or the cattle rancher guys, those kind of people. And I thought there's got to be a better way in life. And I, because of my mom's MS, she was kind of a recluse. So she didn't get out and about. She just was dealing with stuff. She was diagnosed at 19. Just a young woman. Wow. A young woman. And lived her life, her whole life until her passing with that. And I just remember they loved the death out of my sister and I. I just remember having that dream, like, how am I I want that big home. You know, I want that big car. And everything was material then. And it's normal. You know, it's a very normal thing. And I would see that, and I threw my life into baseball. And the father I talked about that was in the holes digging with me, on Saturday morning at 7:00, he was on the mound throwing balls to me. If I'd hit 1 million balls, I think I've hit 10 million. You know who was in the outfield shagging those balls? My mom with MS. Cruising around the outfield. She would shag the balls with my sister. And so that's what they did. They poured their lives into us. And that was my dream. And that was going to be my ticket. I was very blessed to be on a CIF championship team in California, Southern California, as a senior in high school. There was no travel ball. There were no, the things that I did with Hannah and travel ball and going to these huge organized events where college coaches come in to do all the recruiting. There was none of that. So right out of high school, without going into too much depth of how that all panned out, my first 3 years of college ball were horrible, just horrible experiences. My last 2 years, the last 2.5 years, I was in the College Baseball World Series in 1983 and won that year. Excuse me, in 1985, we were in the College Baseball World Series. We lost to Florida Southern in the final best out of 3 games. And that's where I got recognized. And I ended up signing with the Milwaukee Brewers. And that was, it had come like full circle. It was something that when you've done enough soft toss, you know, to where in the heel of your hand here, there's a hole through the batting glove, and in your hand, and your hand's bleeding, you know you're doing it. Did you guys watch the Little League World Series?
I used to.
Yeah, it was an amazing series that just it was over this weekend. But you know, to watch, regardless of who it is, boys, girls, whatever it is, when they have a dream and they're going after it and they're struggling, and people don't see what happens in the backyard or on the ball field when you're practicing. And so anyway, signed with Milwaukee, reported to the Pioneer League, and I was on my way. In 2 months, my vision went from 2015 to 2100 in 1985. And so the baseball that looked like a great big white volleyball to me when I was hitting looked like a fuzzy cotton ball.
Holy cow.
So then at that time, you know, I'm like thinking, what's going on here? And I became nearsighted. And the only corrections for that type of vision issue then were the glasses that you're wearing, Will. gas permeable contact lenses or a procedure that was referred to as radiokeratotomy. So the radiokeratotomy had about a 15% success rate. So that was a surgeon making cuts into the cornea and kind of guessing to make sure they get the right depth of cut and length of cut for, I guess, the light to reflect, and so that your vision's restored. I didn't do that. The other thing was these gas permeable, there were no soft contact lenses then. This gas permeable lens was a plastic sphere. People could either wear it or they couldn't wear it. I couldn't wear it. The last thing was the sport glasses. So I put the sport glasses on. Now the lens is off your eye. It's not a part of your eye. I got in the batter's box and I took the first pitch and I just threw my glove and bat and everything on the ground. That night, I went back to where we were staying there in Montana, packed up all my gear. I drove straight back to California. And I was in a dark spot in my life then. And I had buddies that had gone on and like Mike Munoz that ended up having a very successful career as a Major League Baseball player. So that very dream that I had was gone. It vaporized. And I didn't know why. I had the way I was raised, I was healthy, and but I was pissed. I was beyond, it was like, this has been like a thief in the night that comes to kill, destroy, and steal from you. And I'm like, this is not real. This isn't a thing. So, yeah, it was at that point there that I was like, what am I going to do? And so I go back, end up getting a job at a Nordstrom's of all places, because I heard you could make a lot of money, and began selling men's shoes. And I met a guy that came in that had the same College World Series ring on, and was buying a pair of $200 Allen Edmond dress shoes. And he looks at me, his name is Lance. He looks at me and he says, he saw my ring. He's like, who are you? He was 5 years older than I was. He was on the 1980 team. It was an instant fraternal connection because of Coach Scalinos and playing for the same club. And he says, Skylar, I told him the whole story. He's like, I get it. He pitched, his elbow went out. He's like, I get it. You know, you got to move on. And he's like, you need to come to work for the company I work for. You'll be hired within a week. And so what's the first thing somebody like that asks? How much money do you make? Right? You're young. We're all young. He's like, you can make a lot of money, dude. And I'm like, well, tell me a little bit about it. He goes, we get a company car. You get an expense account. I was single at the time. You get to stay in hotels. You travel. In fact, Louisville Sluggers, one of my customers. I'm like, what do you sell them? And he goes, sandpaper. And I'm like, what did you say? And he goes, I sell them all their sanding belts. All the bats need to be sanded, both aluminum and wood. I'm like, right then, fellas, you remember I was telling you my dad used to make me cut? He also used to make me sand. And that was the worst thing in the world that I ever did, was sand, sheetrock, and mud, you know, and all of this crazy stuff he built to keep me off a pot. And when I heard sandpaper, I'm like, Lance, you are crazy. I didn't verbalize that. I'm just like, dude, get out of here. And so I ended up taking a job with that company. And the name of that company was VSM Abrasives out of O'Fallon, Missouri. I started learning as much as I could about the features and benefits of this and that, and trying to understand applications and how does sanding belts work on golf clubs, how they work on guns, how they work on furniture. Just went through all this stuff. And after I was with that company for 12 years, and after I finally figured out that life isn't about money, it's about serving others. Once I figured that all out, and it took a while, for me to get it, because they don't teach this in junior high. They don't teach this in high school. They don't teach it in college. And I finally figured out the reason they don't teach it is because there's nobody there qualified to teach this. And so I started serving and started learning about products that people were manufacturing, that they were making. And my career in sandpaper started in 1985. It has been the most amazing blessing that I could ever dream of ever having in my life, in the way that I've been blessed by the Lord. And I'll tell you what, I'm not perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I sit and I look at Mary, my wife, and she's the brains behind this, by the way. She should be on this podcast, not me. But I look at her, we sit there, on the deck overlooking the ocean. And I'm like, I used to, seriously, I would go, I'm not worthy, but I am worthy, because I know that I have a maker, right? A creator that he's told me so. And we did a big retreat at our home there. And I stood before a group of people that we were blessed that came and partook in this retreat. And I made a comment. I said, I don't own this home. This is the Lord's house. And we're just here on earth, kind of occupying it and bringing people in so that we can break bread together, so that we can become friends, so that we can learn more about one another. And that's truly, none of us own anything, right?
That's right.
It's here today and it's gone tomorrow. So we within our organization, our organizational structure with all of our employees, we do a book of the month every month. And we all read the same book. And I'm real big on building humans. And when I have a fella that we've hired, that when he shakes my hand and there's no self-confidence there, he lacked a father figure growing up. And now he can get up in front of a group of 40 people and give his takeaway on chapters 1 through 3 and look at every single human in that room and share from his heart what that book spoke to him on. That's what we're all about, is building people. And we've got a lot of work to do. It's, I need to live to be, I think, 120 with what I want to get done, or just live fast. I got to live fast. But there's so many people that are struggling in life that have no direction. They have no purpose. They don't have a why. And you never know who the next set of eyeballs you're going to look into, the next human you're going to look into, and what you may, or, what you can, just the example, the way you live your life, you don't know how that's going to affect them or touch them. I don't know how all three of our children are so deeply rooted in the word. And I'm like, Mary, we never said, get your Bible out, and get into the word. They, I don't know how I guess I do know how it happened, but it's crazy. It's crazy that, we've been blessed, and it's also, it's like surreal, but it's all through serving. And that's our big mantra. So anybody can be anything they want to be in this country. It's just having the right association, the people you choose to hang around with, and the books you read. It's the books you read. It's what you're putting in your mind.
Absolutely. So when did your that seed that was planted when you were riding a bike, when did that come into blossom as an adult?
Dude, it was a bomb. That seed was a bomb. And it was the moment I held Hannah.
Oh, yeah.
When I watched Mary give birth to my child, our child, I'm like, this is all good. What's bad about this? And I started going crazy. I'm like, this is good. This event in life is good. Where does goodness come from? And I was like, Sean, okay. I'm like thinking of Sean, right? My buddy. And I'm like, if this is good, then bad is bad. There's bad. And I'm like, this event isn't bad. It's good, but bad is evil. And it was so simple for me. It was just I didn't need anybody to hit me with like fire and brimstone and just like, it was like common sense.
It's awesome.
I'm like, how could you not believe? And there's so much goodness in the world today. Mary and I, we lost one of our dearest friends, Mary's age, at the age of 57, to stomach cancer. And Kristen's gone. And John's there. That's her husband. And she's got 2 beautiful daughters and grandchildren. And we're like, why? Why? Why do these things happen? But they're so, I guess for me, it's my own maturity and how much time I devote to the word, right?
Yep.
There's a word I hate. What's that? It's let's see. It's a 5-letter word. And I struggle with this, you guys, all the time. The word is drift.
Okay.
Man, I'm going to tell you what. So this, we talked about your place at Topsail.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. I heard a sermon one time, and it was about drifting. And it's like when you're in the ocean, and if you don't keep your eye on where you're at and stay swimming the current, you can wake up and you're a mile down the shore, and you're like, where am I? Because you didn't stay focused on where you were at. But
right.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt that when you said drift.
No, it's those anchors, right? It's the anchors that keep us rooted. And when they break free, and what's crazy is we allow it to happen. There was a period, I'm 62. I know I get up at 5:15 every day in the morning, every day. If I don't come to my office and the sun hasn't yet crested, right, to where I like these lamps that aren't bright. And that's where I get into my Bible study. But when I travel for a month, I drift. And that's an excuse. That's an excuse, right? I shouldn't allow that to happen. This is the crazy thing. I take my Bible study book with me in my bag when I travel. So if there's people out there that find themselves in life drifting, it's normal. You got to find a brother that you can latch on to.
Absolutely.
And I mean, for me, there's not that many men that I'm real close to, right? But there's a couple that can say the right things to me, and I'm like, I got to snap out of this. Mm-hmm. This is not the direction I want to go, right? So it's that word, I don't like that word. And the creating that habit and staying on task is so important. And truly, that's why an accountability partner is there.
Absolutely. Yep.
It was so easy to have an accountability partner when you're playing sports, right?
Yep.
My hitting coach, he would just call it out the way it was. Because he knew my dream. So he had leverage against me. So, but that's why doing what you fellas do. And I'm going to make this a part of my devotion time is to listen in, because this is what it's all about.
Well, we appreciate that. So I do have a question. So 12 years at the abrasive company. When did Surfprep? When was Surfprep born? What's that story?
Crazy. So my very first sales call I ever made, Will, with that company, I had a tie and a Nordstrom tie and nice shirt on. You imagine somebody coming into your woodworking shop with you look like an IRS agent or an accountant.
Yep.
But this is how we dressed back then.
I'm a banker, so.
There you go. You're a banker. So I'll never forget. I was in Van Nuys, California. There was these two crotchety old guys in the back making something. I heard a joiner going, high pitched noise. And they yelled out at me and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I honestly didn't know what I was doing there. I had to sell, right? And I said, "Well, I'm hoping I could talk to you guys about my sandpaper." The other guy yells out, "I got 3 orders for you today." I'm like, "What? Lance didn't tell me it was going to be this easy." He yells out at me, "Get out, stay out, and don't come back."
Oh, wow.
As God is my witness, I went out across the street, Will. I got in my Chevy Eurosport, and I'm like, I was pissed because the vision thing, right?
Right.
And I'm like, what am I doing in Van Nuys, California in a shirt and tie trying to sell some dude a portable belt? And that's kind of, that's what happened there. But so that 12-year period, I learned that if I identified areas where these were big factories in Southern California, I had 6 factories with 600 employees each. They were all furniture. Those 6 factories were giving me $3 million a year for sandpaper.
Whoa.
At a 10% commission.
There you go.
In 1999.
My man. Yeah.
That's nothing great about me.
Right. Yep.
The best part of that was I finally began to understand I got to figure out where people are struggling in life. There's Band-Aids and there's cauterizing wounds. When you put a Band-Aid on something that needs a stitch, right?
Right.
There's a difference. And I was out putting Band-Aids. I would go into accounts and say, "Hey guys, I understand you use a lot of 5-inch hook and loop discs. We're talking like 50,000 discs a month." And instead of working with them to figure out where their pain points were on their products they were using and how to better the operation, that's what I did. It wasn't until I started learning everything about making product that I was able to zero in, and building blocks of trust started stacking upon themselves so that these people, the buyers, the owners, they would start giving me 50 grand a month, 60 grand a month for sandpaper.
Wow.
So that's kind of the evolution of that. One of my vendors at that time was a company by the name of Dixon Enterprises out of Fallbrook, California. George Dixon was the inventor of the foam sanding block.
Oh.
Every foam sanding block you've seen at Menards, Lowe's, Ace, Ben Moore, Sherwin-Williams, Home Depot, George Dixon, and a friend of his from England, Jack Woodywees, together invented the foam sanding block for the fingernail industry.
Oh.
One vertical of our business is over 800 Vietnamese wholesale beauty supply warehouses around the world.
Interesting. Never thought doing nails.
If you ask your wives if they've ever seen the purple or the orange buffer, in a nail salon, that's a Dixon product.
Oh,
George Dixon and his wife and his daughter and son-in-law built that business. Mary and I didn't build it.
okay.
What happened? Okay. December 19th of 2003, Mary and I got a phone call at 6 o'clock in the morning from Marina Dixon. Marina is a very good friend of ours today. Marina said, "Hey, Skylar, you're one of our customers in the woodworking finishing vertical business." And she says, "I'm selling the company today." And I said, "Why would you do that, Marina?" And I was worried about the supply chain and that changing and me maybe not getting the products that I had always gotten from them. Long story short, her 29-year-old husband committed suicide 2 nights before.
Oh my gosh.
And she called Mary and I because I think probably in the 40 or 50 visits I made down there to pick up product from them, these were all 1-inch sanding blocks, 2-sided sanding pads, and single-sided sanding pads. I never once saw her or Tim smile in 2.5 years. Lots of things going on. Very young couple. He took his life. We end up buying Dixon. After Mary and I sat down with her and George, her dad, and I said, "Marina, you don't want to do this. You want to keep this business." At that time, then the business was doing $2 million a year in 2003. I said, "You want to keep this business. Mary will help you through this process." She goes, "I want nothing to do with it." There were 7 times that together, Mary and I said, "You don't want to do this. Keep the business." Finally, she's like, "I'm going to go to the next person on the list. I appreciate where you're coming from, but if you don't want to buy it, then I'm going to go to the next person." At that point, we bought it. So we bought the business. And at that point, it was all Dixon abrasives. At that time, some of our biggest customers were large name brand manufacturers like Mirka, that we sold all the blocks, 2-sided pads, single-sided pads to under private label. We haven't worked with Mirka since I created Surfprep. There are other, George Dixon in the late 70s was one of the pioneers to start bringing 40-foot containers of sanding foam blocks products over to the US back then.
Interesting.
Wow.
So a year later, Marina came back to Mary and I, and she said, "Can I buy the business back?" And we said no. And she said, "Would you agree that the purchase price you paid for it was undervalued?" I said, "Yes, it was." And she said to Mary and I, Noelle was 2 months old when this happened, when Tim passed away. And I said, "Marina, give me a valuation." And I said, "I already think I know what the valuation should be. And let's see where the numbers come out." We were dead on. And I said, "I will pay you every penny of that."
Wow.
Every single, my father, Marina's dad, her brother, every single person Mary and I went to said, "A deal is a deal." And I said, "Let me explain the conditions of this." And they're like, "It's business." I'm like, "No, it's not just business." And so Mary's one of Marina's dearest friends. We love her to death. We would not be where we've told her this over and over. We wouldn't be today where we are in life if it hadn't been for that misfortune. And she wasn't in a state of mind to be able to even reason, to even pull anything together. She just threw a number out there when we bought the business, and we knew it, and it was the right thing to do. So it's all about doing the right thing in life. And you don't always get what you want today, right? Yesterday, Pastor Gary was talking about you may have a demand, or you may ask God, well, I want this right now. Give me an answer now. And that might not come for 13 years. And you're put into a process, right? You're put into a process of patience, and it will happen. All good will come. But it's not in our time. It's in his time, right?
Right.
And so we looked back on that. Mary and I looked back on that, and I'm like, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are in life had that not happened. So Surfprep came about around 2005 or 6. Okay. We created the name originally for our non-woven pads. One of the foam, abrasive foam in the United Kingdom, back in 2005, they sent me a 6-inch disc on 1/2-inch foam with a t-shirt material glued to it. And Malcolm Ragg and Jeff Cooper said, do you think the finishing world could use a foam sanding pad attached to a sander, an air sander? And I said, I don't know, man. I was selling millions of blocks and 2-sided pads a year to all these factories. And I had a spray booth back then in the building, and I would pick up doors, furniture component parts, and I just went crazy with it. The 3x4 sander was originally designed for Toyota for all the door jambs on the production line for the automobile industry, the rectangular sander. And so I've been very close for 34 years with our tool supplier out of Taiwan. And we've created and worked on products together. But I started, doing all these things. And I went to a company, E.B. Bradley. It was a cabinet hardware company in California, still is today. Very good distributor, a customer of ours. And when I went to them in the infancy of our product, nobody knew what foam abrasives on a tool was about. So I told Mary, I said, I got to leave. I got to be gone for the next 2 years. Excuse me. I was gone for 240 days a year for 2 years in a row. And I can't tell you how many thousands of shops I've been into. But I drove all of the demand up from the users of the product through the distribution channels. Today, it's mind-blowing. I think we're in 150 Benjamin Moore stores. There's about 2,200 more we got to get through.
Oh, wow.
It's just gone completely. People talk, like 5X, 2X, 10X. It's crazy. And we're systemizing everything today. It's changed the entire, our company is today not what it was even 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it's we just hired 2 new reps, one in the Minnesota area, Denny Johns, and then we have Holly Kolvik down in Atlanta. And of course, we got our director of sales, Chad. We just came off IWF and just having a lot of fun, having a blast. Everybody's like, why aren't there any chairs in your booth? We don't have any time to sit. We're always up and about and engaged with people. So it's been scary. I wouldn't be honest if I told you. I mean, there's times when we've been scared to death. And there's times where it's so exciting, but managing and scaling growth is insane. It is crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm trying to remember when the first time I heard us. Well, no, the first time I ever heard of Surfprep was at IWF 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. So we lived in Nashville. A buddy texted me, and he listened to the podcast. Hey, Tim, and he basically, I don't know how the conversation came up, but he's like, "Hey, we should go down to IWF for a day. We could leave at like 4 a.m. and get down there and spend a day down there, and then come back. And it's really cheap to get in, you know. So, all right, so we did it, and we drove down and we spent a day. And you guys had your whole big booth set up, and we come over and we tested the sanders, and Tim bought one on the spot.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because his wife was getting into like doing some furniture restoring and stuff, and doing like dressers and whatnot, and so he bought one of the 3x4s right off the bat. And I remember the first time I used one, it was so smooth. I was like, "Is this even working?" Like I couldn't tell it was actually on, and I was like, "This is incredible." And so, but yeah, so that was the first time I heard of you guys, and then Tom and I came to Workbench Con this year and got to talk with you guys there, and I've been kind of watching your growth. I think you guys have done a really good job through social media, and kind of getting creators to use their sanders and stuff has been really cool. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
That's all Hannah.
Yeah, she's the social media queen.
Yeah, she her major, she went to Point Loma Nazarene in San Diego, and her major was broadcast journalism, and she loves people. I think that girl, I'm not kidding. If she doesn't have 4,000 phone numbers in her phone, I mean, she has so many people that she's just friends with.
Yeah. She was super nice at Workbench Con, and she went out of her way to get Tom and I swag. And she's like,
right on,
because she listens to the podcast, and she's like, I want to get you guys swag. And she gave us some t-shirt and hat and stuff like that. So
the funny thing at Workbench Con is I was going over to take y'all's class that was over on that far hallway. And of course, I had never met you or Hannah. And so I'm walking over there, I'm standing out, I'm looking for the room, and she happens to be the person. She's like, "What are you trying to find?" She's like, "I'm looking for the room where the sanding class is." And then we were sitting there chatting. I didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. And then we got to talking, and I said, I'm with Mountain Valley Maker. And I said, we have a podcast, and Faith talks. She said, "Yeah, I've been listening. I've been following you." I'm like, "Who are you?" And then she told me. I was like, I'll be darned, because when you don't see her name on anything, you just see Surfprep's name like on the Instagram. Yeah. And so I didn't know if it was a female, male, who. I had no clue, but it was just kind of funny. But the fascinating thing I love about your story, you go way back to when your dad had you in the field, and you talked about him being in the trenches with you. He was there, tossing melons. He was there digging out the stumps. The same thing with my grandfather and my father when I was a kid, but then you look at how all that has played in to you being a mentor, because that's really mentoring. You don't learn from somebody who just tells you to go do something. You learn from somebody who shows you. And our church in North Carolina, we were really big on mentoring, and we kind of had a mentoring symbol based on the cross, and that was that we all need a mentor that we're reaching up to. So somebody who is further along in their faith, or further along in their woodworking, or further along in business, whatever it might be. And then when those people that are out kind of right there in the journey with us, they're kind of in the realm where we're doing life together. And then we got to reach back and grab somebody that's new and bring them along.
Yeah.
And so, that it's just powerful for them to have set that example. And then all those little pieces that, we don't see it at the time. You talked about like we pray for things now, but God answers sometime down the road,
Yeah.
and you reach that baseball journey, and then what seemed like this prosperous, thriving future career all of a sudden yanked, and then look how God took that event and turned it into and what you have today. Same thing with the tragedy of the whole Sanders situation of that company and her husband, but God takes everything and then works them together for good. And then you look at where you're at today, and you can look back and see all these little things that happened along the way that God used to formate. And I just think that's so powerful how you said, you tell us what the valuation is and we're going to pay you every penny. Because I'm going to tell you, that says a lot about your character. You don't find people like 99.9% of all Americans would have said, sorry, deal's a deal, and walked out. And I just think God blesses that type of honor and
the character.
It's just so amazing, man. A lot of respect for you.
Thank you. It was kind of a contentious, like, Mary, I would share this, and she's like, are you sure that you want to say that? Because, is it important to do that? And I felt that, I felt, it is important. It's important. It is nothing about us. It's nothing great about us. So she didn't want it to be like people looking at us like, oh, you did a good deed thing, right? The reason I share it is because it was the right thing to do. And, here was a young woman, 30 years old, devastated, and it's just, I want other people to make those choices.
Yes.
And whatever, karma, what I feel, a lot of the things that I did as a kid or younger, where I did things that were wrong, like rip the mirror off of a car in a parking lot and leave. Right. And then I walk out my garage. Remember that Harley I was telling you about?
Uh-huh.
There's a huge dent in the front fender. I'm like, where did that come from, Tom? I didn't do that.
One of the kids
did it. So I'm like, and then I think, okay, there's the mirror I broke off the car.
Oh, man.
So it comes back to you, man. What you sow, you reap, right?
That is
Absolutely.
100% that in life. God's word is so powerful. Now, I'm going to tell you, throughout the word, I love every story about seed planting, and it is so powerful. And speaking of seeds, and you talked about reading books. I love that. That made me want to put in an application at Surfprep tomorrow because I love
you need an IT guy?
But right now I'm reading a book called Gospeller by Willie Robertson.
Spell that?
Yes, dude. So look, this is the best book I have read in a long time. Gospel.
Yep.
Gospeller. And so
got it.
What it is, that kid on that bicycle when you were riding that Schwinn, and was your Schwinn a banana boat?
Apple crate.
When you said that, it got me thinking about my Schwinn back when I was a kid. But that kid, I think you said his name was Mark or Mike or
John.
John. Okay, I wasn't even close.
John.
Okay.
John.
So he was a gospeler. He was spreading the gospel. And this whole book is about us being able to go out and share the gospel where we're at. And because I'm not Craig Groeschel. I'm not going to stand up in front of millions of people. I'm not a good speaker, and I don't have that type of personality, but God can still use me to share with people that I connect with. And that kid being bold and asking you on that day planted that seed. And then later on, like you said, the seed's in there. God's going to make it grow. And So, but yeah, that book is fantastic. It's one of the best ones I've read in a while.
Now,
So,
I did hear you say about you have to know your why. Have you guys done Simon Sinek? Start with why.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's powerful.
Yes. Yes. You know, it's funny, Will, I was doing for a period of time there, I was doing a lot of product trainings for these big cabinet hard. So I'd have 50 sales reps come in on pick a day at 7 a.m. and they would they'd be instructed to be there to learn from Bloom, Tight Bond, SawStop, Surfprep, right? So the factory reps are coming in. They're talking about the features and benefits of stuff. I did that my very first time. Remember I told you I was gone for like 240 days a year? That I was canvassing North America. And one of my very first sessions I did, the sales managers were sitting in the back of their team, their sales reps. They were all on their computers, and I don't know what they were doing. But in my mind, those sales managers should have been in the front row. So all their sales reps sitting behind them saw what was on their computer screen. And I would catch people kind of dozing off, right? 6:30, 7 in the morning. They didn't hear what the features and benefits were of Surfprep Red Pro Foam. Who in the world gives a rip, right? What they want is they're hoping that they can sell something. Because when they sell something, they get their paycheck or their commission, right? So I changed everything up in these training seminars, and I would clap a lot like that. Because the moment somebody would start to doze off or whatever, I'd clap and I'd snap them right out of it. But I said, folks, there's 40 of you in this room here today. Betty, you look sharp. It's 6:45 right now. What time did you get up, put your makeup on, and do your hair this morning? And they're like, who's this dude? Skylar from Surfprep. And why this got the attention of the sales managers. They were no longer messing around on their laptops in the back of the room. Because I said, why do you look so sharp? Why'd you come in today? You start getting all these answers. Well, I was told I had to be here for a sales meeting. I go, why? Why are you here? Why are you sitting in that chair today? Then I would get off of Betty and I'd go to Tom because I wouldn't want to hammer her. I finally would get to the root of why are you in sales? Do you even want to be in sales? Are you here because this is just a stopover? Do you really want to be a teacher? Figure out your why in life. Because it's the old 80-20 rule. 80% of you in this room here are never going to sell anything. You might have people buy from you by accident because you have a big catalog. But if you want to go out and make 100, 200, 300 grand a year, stop selling. Start listening. God gave you 2 eyes and 2 ears so you could listen and you could observe. And then don't open your mouth until you've gotten enough information to where you can ask a question. You guys, this is nothing about me. I promise you. I've had sales managers come up and like bear hug me and almost kill me. They're like, what, I don't know what you did here, but I'm like, you people got to figure out your why in life. What is your purpose? Why are you breathing? Why are you even alive? And I would focus on that and I would get into it and get a bunch of engagement. And then I'd ask them, do you know who Joe Girard is? No. I said, Joe Girard would sell 3,000 cars a year. John, how many days are in a year? 365. Everybody's like, no, he didn't. There's no way you can sell 3,000 cars a year. It's impossible. I go, the reason why you guys are saying that is because all the car salesmen, you know, are standing up against the wall with their foot on the wall with a cigarette in their mouth when you walk onto the lot. They have no intention. They have no why. They have no purpose. And Joe Girard did. And back in the 70s, he was a multimillionaire for selling GM cars. it's in, I'm like, buy the book. Everywhere I go, I have people open their Amazon app up. I go, put the book, don't put it in your cart, put purchase now. And once you get the book, if you read it, if you truly read it, you feel there's zero value in it, I'll send you my UPS number. I'll Venmo you or Zelle you twice the dollar amount you paid for the book, and I'll pay to get you to ship me the book back. It's not happened once.
Wow.
People need to read.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Start with Why is a good one. And another one he wrote,
Yes.
Leaders Eat Last. That's a good one too.
Yep.
So,
This is my book I'm reading right now.
Oh, The Servant, James Hunter.
Incredible.
Yeah. I'm a big, and the same thing, a big one on servant leadership. Because my goal with my team and my guys is, how can I help you? Because, you know, I could point fingers and I could try to tell the guys what to do, but, you know, how can I help? And that's always been my mentality. And that's why I'm 32 years old and I'm over a $1 billion company in IT, right?
Yep.
But it's not because of me. It's because of what God's done through me by the blood of Christ and the character and the people that I put myself around at a young age, right? I mean, it's
yes, sir.
It's where I'm at. So that's awesome. So go ahead.
No, I just we got to get to the youth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
There's a generation out there that is confused and lost, and there's a enemy that wants to break up the family and the nuclei of the family. And I'm a huge proponent of men becoming men. Men, you know, I was part of a men's group in Tennessee, and as we getting ready to start up another one up here, and I think it's very important. I'm with you. Youth, men need to step up, and the statistics on if a man and a father is in the house, raises the kids' chance of being successful by tenfold.
Amen.
Yep.
But you know, I think one thing that was very powerful, you said earlier about all three of your kids being in the Word, and you said that you asked your wife, how is it we weren't sitting here doing Bible studies, but you said every morning at 5:15 you're up, you're sitting in the Word. Our kids see what we do, and they mimic it. And so it's nothing for me to walk in my daughter's room and she's in there with her Bible open in a devotional book and reading. And so that's just the lead by example. That book you just showed us, The Servant Leadership. Who was the author?
James Hunter.
Hunter. Okay. I have not read that one, so I'm going to have to put that on my
list. An amazing story.
All right.
I love it. Well, like you said, Tom, more is caught than taught. So,
yep.
Oh, I like that.
For sure.
Yeah. More is caught than taught. So, I did see recently you guys just announced a new sander and dust extractor and stuff. Is that the new thing on the horizon for Surfprep? What else is going on?
Yeah, we've got on our 5-inch and our 6-inch sanders, we for a lot of the industrial applications where somebody's sanding for 7 hours a day, we wanted to get the heat down. So we completely re-engineered the body of the tool to create hallways and pathways around the entire motor.
Oh.
We redesigned our fan to redirect what otherwise would have been exhaust type of air to pull it up into those hallways and pathways. And we had a girl at Mary and I were in Vermont at a big maker camp 2 months ago. We had a girl doing a cutting board that should have been run through a belt planer or a knife planer, and she sanded that cutting board flat in an hour and 10 minutes, and the tool was as cool on the grip as it was after an hour and 10 minutes as it was when she picked it up.
Whoa.
So the 3x4 is being completely re-engineered and redesigned
For the same thing.
Yes. And with some cool other added features to it. So we've listened to one of the things I've done with these engineers is I pulled them out of labs and I've taken them into Winnipeg, Canada in January and Tijuana, Mexico in July. And I let them stand in those environments and watch what humans are doing with tools.
Oh,
That's brilliant.
So it's one thing to have a bunch of people create what they believe will be the next best thing, right? But until they're doing it themselves, they're never going to know.
absolutely.
So, so we have the new 12-gallon dust extractor that it'll accommodate 2 air sanders or 2 electric sanders or an air and an electric
Oh, wow.
That is
sander.
a huge time saver. That is one thing drives me crazy, having to unplug and disconnect the air hose to switch from one to the next. That is such a cool feature.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So every time we've been blessed and honored to win a the Visionary Challengers Award, I've known at that very moment we've got to do something different. It's back into the batting cage, and you got to take 10,000 swings at soft toss to perfect that swing. So, so much of what we do in and around our group is sports related. Just because that's really all I know. You know, I mean, I've got a degree in finance, and we've been fiscally responsible. You know, I was going to become a broker, was where I thought I was going to go, you know, after the baseball ended. And Lance walked in that day, and that was the end of that story.
And sandpaper.
So, yeah.
I know at Workbench Con you gave out some of your new sandpaper. I've been using it in the shop, and it works really well.
Cool.
The white, what you guys call it?
White lightning.
White lightning. Yep.
Yeah. That's our that's our answer to a ceramic sanding disc.
Right, and it lasts.
Good.
Sure.
Good.
So,
well, we're honored to be in every shop. I make it an effort to comment and let people know that they have a lot of choices, right? There's a lot of choices, and we're honored to be in their shop. We're real big on service. So anybody has
I've heard stories. I've heard stories of how quick your guys' turnaround is.
Cool. We work very hard at that, Will.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Man, well, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I know you're not on social media, but you guys have a website for Surfprep that we can point people to. And
yeah, it's surfprepsanding.com.
Okay.
The, of course, Instagram page, the YouTube page, all of that. We're going to be a lot of people that have been buying from us, you know, on our website are really excited to walk into the local Benjamin Moore store. In most of these locations, there's a 12-foot wall full of Surfprep.
Oh, wow. See, we don't have we may have a Benjamin Moore in Erie. Where I'm at, we have a Sherwin-Williams.
Okay.
So, but there may be there's a Benjamin Moore in Nashville when we lived there.
Yeah.
One of our offices, actually in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah, those are good people.
Oh, you know those guys?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've got a place in Columbia, Murfreesboro, and there might be one more. I can't remember where.
Okay.
But I think we've got maybe 21 stores coming on board in the Denver market here soon.
Oh, awesome.
So which Benjamin Moore dealer is it from Denver?
I believe it's going to be Gyrie's.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Because we have a Gyrie's here where I live. And so ironically, when I got out of the Air Force, I ran a Benjamin Moore store for 3 years. And so I'm a diehard Benjamin Moore paint guy. Like I don't use anything else. Love it. Yeah. So
Love it.
I was hoping you were going to say, because I had not seen your stuff in there yet. And I'm like, I'm going to have to get them guys on board. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, man, fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd know. Is there a Benjamin Moore in Erie, Pennsylvania? I don't know if there is. Benjamin.
Gosh, I would have to look at our dealer map. It's getting out of hand on me now.
Yeah. Let's see here. Nope, there's not. Sherwin-Williams and a Glidden. So, Funny enough story. My dad was a painter, owned a painting business, and so I grew up around painting, and I hate painting. I won't paint. My wife usually does all the painting around here. I can't stand painting, but
Yeah.
man, that's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's getting late here in Pennsylvania. I'm on the other side of the country. So, yeah, just appreciate your story and your heart for people and serving people and what you guys do at Surfprep. It's just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. And again, I'm honored to be able to be here. And if what I've shared, if anybody, if it gives them a glimmer of hope, that you can really do anything you set your mind to, it's true. It's
absolutely.
There's nothing. It's just having heart and a willingness to serve.
Amen.
Awesome. Well,
thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks everybody listening. Until next week, I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.